The figure stood motionless, like a statue in the thick of the forest, simply watching as Alex lost his mind in panic. But that moment of pure, distilled terror was the culmination of a day that had begun with suffocating arrogance. Hours earlier, the sun had been high and bright, casting a deceptive warmth over the Pine Ridge wilderness. 17-year-old Alex had stood by the trunk of his friend's hatchback, lacing up his expensive, barely scuffed hiking boots with the air of a man preparing for a tactical mission rather than a leisure stroll. Around him, the rest of the senior class group was settling into a rhythm of lazy mediocrity, cracking open cheap beers, unfolding chairs, and complaining about the lack of cellular service. To Alex, they looked like cattle. He was different. He was an explorer. He had watched enough survival documentaries to believe that the wilderness was not a threat, but a playground for the initiated. "You, seriously going now?" Jessica asked, her voice cutting through his self-congratulatory internal monologue. She was standing by the cooler, her arms crossed, looking at the dipping sun. "Alex, sunset is in like 90 minutes. The ranger station explicitly said the North Trail is washed out in places." Alex stood up, stomping his feet to test the fit of his boots. He flashed her a grin that was meant to be charming but came off as condescending. "Jess, relax. I am not hiking to Everest. I am going up to Crystal Lake. That's 3 miles, tops. I want to catch the golden hour light for the feed. You know the lighting down here in the pit is garbage." "It's not about the lighting," Jessica snapped, stepping closer, her green eyes narrowing. "It's about the fact that nobody goes up there this late. That's bear country, and the terrain is deceptive. Just wait until morning. We can all go. And have Kevin and Mike whining the whole way? No thanks," Alex scoffed, grabbing his lightweight pack. "I need some solo time. I need to reconnect with the wild. I'll be back before you guys even finish setting up the tents. Do not wait up." He turned his back on her before she could protest further, tuning out her voice as he marched toward the trailhead. He felt a surge of superiority as the sounds of the campsite, the laughter, the pop of cans, the music, faded behind him, replaced by the crunch of pine needles under his soles. He was fast, athletic, and driven. He checked his smartwatch constantly, timing his splits, turning the hike into a performance where he was both the actor and the audience. The climb was steeper than he remembered from the maps he had briefly glanced at online. The air grew thinner and colder as he ascended, the dense canopy of pines filtering the sunlight into dying embers of orange and gray. By the time he reached the ridge overlooking the valley, his breathing was heavy, but his ego was untouched. He had made it in record time. He found the perfect spot, a rocky outcrop that jutted out over the tree line, offering a panoramic view of the darkening forest below and the jagged peaks in the distance. It was breathtaking. It was content. Alex pulled out his phone, annoyed to see the no-service icon, but dismissed it. He did not need to post it now, he just needed to capture it. He spent 10 minutes curating the perfect angle. He adjusted his hair, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and practiced his candid smile, the one that looked adventurous but effortless. He turned his back to the dense wall of forest behind him, holding the phone high to frame his face against the majestic drop-off. Click, click, click. He checked the gallery. The lighting was perfect, the amber rays of the setting sun hitting his jawline just right. But as he reviewed the last photo, a sudden cold sensation prickled the back of his neck. It was not a sound. It was the heavy, physical weight of being observed. Alex lowered the phone slowly. The forest had gone silent. The wind had died. The birds that had been chattering during his ascent were gone. He turned around. At first, he saw nothing but the dense tapestry of shadows and pine trunks. He squinted, his heart rate beginning to climb, not from exertion, but from a creeping unease. Then he saw it, or thought he saw it. About 50 yards down the trail, partially obscured by a thicket of dead branches, was a shape. It was tall, too tall to be a bear standing on hind legs, and too narrow. It looked like a person wearing dark, heavy clothing that seemed to absorb the fading light. "Hello," Alex called out. His voice cracked, betraying the confidence he had worn like armor all day. The figure did not move. It did not wave. It did not step forward. It just stood there, perfectly still, facing him. Alex felt a flash of irritation mix with his fear. Was this one of his friends trying to prank him? Kevin, maybe? Kevin, cut it out. It's not funny, man. Silence. The figure remained as rigid as the trees surrounding it. A rational choice lay before Alex. He could hold his ground, demand an answer, or perhaps walk confidently past the figure to return to the camp. That was what a strong, experienced man would do. But the silence was not empty. It was heavy, pregnant with a malice that Alex's primitive brain recognized even if his modern ego tried to reject it. He looked at the trail, the only way down passed directly by that figure. He looked at the steep, rocky slope to his left. A shortcut but dangerous, full of loose shale and sharp drops. I said, "Who is that?" Alex yelled again, taking a step forward, trying to project dominance. The figure did not flinch. But in the deepening twilight, Alex thought he saw the head tilt. Just a fraction of an inch. A robotic, unnatural twitch. That tiny movement shattered him. The facade of the brave explorer evaporated, leaving behind a terrified child. He could not walk past that thing. He could not get close to it. Alex made his choice. He turned away from the trail, away from the figure, and looked down the treacherous ravine. He would forge his own path. He would outrun this creep. He bolted toward the edge of the slope, adrenaline flooding his system, abandoning the safety of the path for the chaos of the descent. Alex did not run. He scrambled. His expensive boots, designed for trails, skidded uselessly on the loose shale of the ravine. He was not hiking anymore. He was falling with style, grabbing at roots and saplings to slow his momentum, tearing the skin of his palms in the process. Why did I run? The thought screamed in his mind, fighting for space with the sheer terror of the situation. It was probably just a hiker. I look like an idiot. He paused for a split second, chest heaving, bracing himself against a mossy boulder. He strained his ears, listening for footsteps on the trail above, waiting for the sound of Kevin's laughter or the heavy tread of a ranger. He heard nothing. No footsteps. No rustling leaves. Then, a sound came from below him. Snap. A dry branch breaking. Not up on the trail where the figure had been, but down here, in the direction he was heading. Alex's blood ran cold. The geography did not make sense. If the figure was on the trail, it could not be below him already. Unless there were two of them. Or unless the thing moved with unnatural speed. Paranoia seized him by the throat. He was not a tourist anymore, he was prey. The woods, which had looked so beautiful through the lens of his camera, now twisted into a nightmare landscape. Roots looked like grasping fingers. Shadows looked like crouching beasts. "Stay calm," he whispered, the sound vibrating in his skull. "Just get to the road." He pushed off the boulder and continued his descent, but his coordination was failing. The darkness was falling rapidly now, turning the gray world into black. He pulled out his phone to use the flashlight, his hands trembling so violently he almost dropped it. He fumbled with the screen, the bright light blinding him momentarily. As the beam cut through the darkness, it illuminated the trees ahead. For a brief second, the light swept over a gray trunk, and Alex swore he saw a hand, pale, long-fingered, withdraw behind it. He screamed, a raw, guttural sound that tore at his throat. He did not think anymore. He just reacted. He sprinted. He disregarded the terrain entirely. He leaped over a fallen log, landed awkwardly on a patch of wet leaves, and felt his ankle roll with a sickening pop. Pain exploded up his leg, blinding and white-hot. Alex cried out, stumbling forward, his momentum carrying him uncontrollably toward a steep drop-off he had not seen in the dark. He flailed his arms, trying to grab a branch, a rock, anything. His hands struck a tree trunk, jarring his shoulder, and his fingers lost their grip on his phone. He watched in slow motion as the device, his lifeline, his light source, tumbled through the air, spinning end over end. It hit a rock, shattered, and bounced into the black abyss below. "No!" he shrieked. But his momentum was too great. His injured ankle gave way, and he pitched forward, sliding uncontrollably down the steep embankment. Dirt and pine needles filled his mouth. Sharp rocks tore at his jacket and jeans. He tumbled, the world spinning in a vortex of pain and darkness. He hit something hard, a protruding root or a rock, with the side of his head. A flash of light exploded behind his eyes, brighter than the camera flash. Then the pain vanished. The fear vanished. The cold vanished. Alex lay crumpled at the bottom of the ravine, hidden by the ferns, as the forest settled back into its oppressive silence. Above him, on the ridge, the night took full possession of the mountain. He was alone, broken, and unconscious, while the thing in the woods continued its vigil. The beep was rhythmic, annoying, persistent. Alex tried to swipe the alarm off, but his arm felt like it was encased in lead. He groaned, a sound that came out as a dry rasp. "Yes, waking up. Get the doctor." The voice was familiar. "Jessica." Alex peeled his eyes open. The harsh fluorescent light of the hospital room assaulted him, forcing him to squint. His head throbbed with a dull, heavy pressure, and his leg was elevated in a cast. "Alex!" Jessica's face swam into view. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her face pale. She looked like she had not slept in days. "Oh my God, you idiot! You absolute idiot!" She was holding his hand, squeezing it tight enough to hurt. "Jess?" he croaked. "Water." A plastic cup with a straw was guided to his lips. He drank greedily. As his senses sharpened, he noticed a uniformed police officer standing in the corner of the room, watching him with a grim expression. What happened?" Alex asked, the memory of the woods rushing back in fragmented, terrifying shards. "The figure. Did you catch him?" Jessica exchanged a look with the officer. "Alex, you've been out for 2 days. Search and rescue found you at the bottom of the ravine. You had a severe concussion and a fractured ankle. You're lucky you did not break your neck." "There was someone?" Alex insisted, panic rising in his chest again, making the heart monitor beep faster. "On the trail, standing there, watching me. I ran. I saw him and I ran." The officer stepped forward. His name tag read Deputy Miller. He pulled a plastic evidence bag from his belt. Inside was Alex's phone. The screen was smashed, a spiderweb of cracks, but the device looked intact. "We found this about 50 feet up the slope from where you landed," Miller said, his voice level devoid of emotion. "We managed to pull the data. We needed to see if there was any evidence of this person you claim chased you." "He did not chase me," Alex corrected, breathing hard. "He stood there. He was watching me from down the trail. That's why I ran. I knew he was going to hurt me." Miller pulled out a tablet. "We looked through your gallery, son. We wanted to see if you caught him in the background of your photos. You took a series of selfies right before the timestamp of your fall." "Yeah," Alex nodded. "I was taking pictures of the view. Then I turned around and saw him." "Alex," Jessica said, her voice trembling, tears spilling over her lashes. "You need to see this." Miller turned the tablet around so Alex could see the screen. It was the last photo Alex had taken. The perfect shot. The lighting was golden, the valley behind him breathtaking. Alex's face was in the foreground, smiling that confident, arrogant smile, his dark hair perfectly windswept. "I do not understand," Alex said. "It's just me." "Look closer," Miller said, zooming in on the image. "We lightened the exposure in the shadows behind you." Alex looked. The breath left his lungs as if he'd been punched. The photo showed Alex's head and shoulders. Directly behind him, not 50 yards down the trail, not in the distance, but occupying the space immediately over his right shoulder, was a blurry, dark shape. It was a torso. The figure had not been standing down the trail. In the photo, a hand clad in a dirty, black glove was raised, inches from the back of Alex's head. It held a jagged, heavy rock. The figure had been standing in the blind spot of the trees, directly behind Alex while he posed. The statue Alex thought he saw down the trail later. That must have been a trick of the light, a shadow, or his own mind trying to make sense of the instinctive feeling of being hunted. But the camera did not lie. The killer had been breathing down his neck. The only reason the rock had not come down and crushed Alex's skull was that Alex had lowered the phone, turned, and, in a fit of cowardly panic, bolted away before the blow could land. Alex stared at the image until the pixels seemed to burn into his retinas. The realization washed over him, cold and nauseating. He remembered the feeling of confidence he had felt on that ridge. The feeling of control. He remembered thinking he was the master of his environment. All the while, death had been standing within arm's reach, mocking his vanity, waiting for him to hold the pose for just 1 second longer. He dry heaved, his stomach convulsing with the phantom memory of a blow that never landed. "We did not find anyone," Miller said quietly, taking the tablet back. "We found footprints behind the spot where you were standing. Boot prints. They did not match yours. They waited there for a while, but after you ran, they did not follow you down the ravine. It seems they did not want to risk the fall." Jessica buried her face in the bedsheets, sobbing. "If you had not run, if you had tried to talk to him, I would be dead," Alex whispered. The words tasted like ash. He looked at his hands, scratched, bandaged, shaking. He thought about his frantic, undignified scramble down the slope. He thought about the shame he had felt when he started running, the belief that he was being a coward. That cowardice was the only survival instinct he had left. His ego, his experience, his bravery, those would have kept him on that ridge until the rock came down. It was his fear, raw, ugly, animalistic fear, that had saved him. "We keeping a detail outside the room," Miller said, moving toward the door, "just in case. But whoever it was, they gone. The woods are big, Alex." The officer left. The room was quiet again, save for the beep of the monitor and Jessica's soft crying. Alex leaned his head back against the pillow and closed his eyes. But he could not find darkness. Behind his eyelids, he saw the image again. The raised hand, the rock, the proximity. He realized then that he would never go back to the woods. He would never hike again. He would never take another selfie. The boy who had walked up that mountain, the boy who thought he knew everything, who thought the world was a stage.